After my sister stole my boyfriend again, I turned to the man she had secretly loved for 5 years. Genoveva had always treated me like her rival: toys, clothes, attention, and now, men. Once, she looked me straight in the eye and smiled. "What can I do, Elena? No man around you can resist me." I laughed and hugged the one man she could never have, Mateo Morales. She had broken up with Adon like he meant nothing. "We only dated for 1 month," she said, stirring her milkshake. "Isn't that normal?" I sipped my coffee. "You sent me those photos and called it true love." She didn't even blink. Adon was never really mine. Handsome, bright, rich, he used me as a shield to keep other girls away. Our relationship went public one day before she took him. Genoveva didn't want him, she just wanted to take what was mine. So I changed the game. My taste wasn't great before, I told her, but this time, I found someone exceptional. She raised an eyebrow. When? The moment she saw him. I saw that look in her eyes. But Mateo only looked at me. We left together. He walked me to the basketball court where he had a game. I sat on the side, holding his jacket. Mateo wasn't just charming, he was bold, protective, real. I had admired him since freshman year, when he stopped a guy who was harassing a girl, without hesitation. I slowly found my way into his world. By sophomore year, we were texting often. Everything changed when I pretended to date Adon. Mateo got jealous, his voice shaky, his eyes red. He cornered me and asked why I'd chosen someone else. That night, the wall between us broke. Since then, he'd been the perfect boyfriend. Even my roommate said so. But deep down, I feared one thing: Genoveva. She started showing up more. Once, I found her outside, waiting with him. Mateo stayed polite, but then he invited me to dinner and told me to bring him. I knew what she was doing, so I brought him. She wore a red mini skirt, deep neckline, perfect waves in her hair. "I heard you're amazing at basketball," she purred to Mateo. "Can you teach me?" He shrugged. "If you want to learn, hire a coach." She leaned in closer. "Why hire one when my sister's boyfriend is right here?" Mateo's expression didn't change. "And don't forget, I'm her boyfriend. Let's avoid misunderstandings." For the first time, Genoveva's smile cracked. I stirred my soup, amused. A few minutes later, I deliberately dropped my chopsticks. As I bent to pick them up, I saw it. Her foot was still there, between his legs, and Mateo hadn't moved. My heart sank. Did he not notice, or did he not care? That night, I could barely sleep. The image of Genoveva's foot between Mateo's legs replayed in my mind like a broken record. Worse than what I saw was what I didn't see. No reaction from him, not a flinch, not a shift, not even a trace of discomfort. He just sat there. The next morning, Mateo greeted me with his usual warmth, arms around my waist, lips brushing my forehead. He acted like nothing had happened. But I couldn't get it out of my head. That moment was now a splinter lodged under my skin. I needed answers. Later that day, we sat on the campus lawn, sunlight dappling through the trees. Mateo handed me a water bottle and smiled. "Mateo," I asked cautiously, "do you think Genoveva is attractive?" He laughed softly. "Is this a trap? Just answer." He thought for a second. "I mean, sure. She's objectively pretty. But so are lots of people." "Why her?" I asked dryly. "She flirts with you. You know that, right?" He frowned. "Oh. Yeah." I blinked. "You seriously didn't notice?" "No," he said. "Because I only see you. Sweet. Simple. But my instincts wouldn't quiet down. 3 days later, Genoveva showed up at my apartment uninvited, as always. She made herself a smoothie in my kitchen like she owned the place and asked if Mateo was coming over. "Maybe," I said. Her eyes lit up. "Oh, good. I wanted to ask him something about that game last week. You know, that jump he did, wow." I nodded, unimpressed. "You seem very interested." "I like talent," she said with a wink. "Especially when it's so pure." That night, Mateo came over. We watched a movie, but I was distant. He noticed. What's wrong? Nothing, I lied. But he paused the movie. You've been cold since the dinner at your sister's place, he said. Talk to me. I stared at him. You didn't move your leg. He blinked. What? Genoveva's foot was between your legs, under the table. You didn't move. He blinked again. What? Genoveva's foot was between your legs under the table, and you didn't move. For a second, his face went blank. It was just a second, but for me, it was enough. Are you serious? He asked, as if I were exaggerating, as if it were all in my head. Only it wasn't. I saw it. I felt it. I remembered the way she looked at him, and the way he didn't pull back, how he kept that calm expression like nothing had happened. And now he wanted me to believe it was all just my paranoia. I can't believe you're going to pretend you don't remember, I replied, stomach churning. I didn't feel anything, Elena. Maybe she brushed me by accident, I don't know. Do you really want to turn this into a problem? His voice, usually calm, now had an impatient tone, like I was the one dragging the whole thing down. It wasn't an accident, I said firmly. You know it wasn't. You just don't want to admit you liked it. Matteo scoffed and got up from the couch, pacing across the room, scratching the back of his neck like I was a child throwing a tantrum. Genoveva is your sister, Elena. Why would she do that? Seriously? Because she's obsessed with everything that's mine. And you are mine. He looked into my eyes, and for a second, I swear I saw something break inside them. Like he didn't want to be that. Like he was tired of being possessed, demanded, pulled into the conflict. Maybe that's the problem, he murmured. You know what? That whole "you're mine" thing. I'm not a prize between the two of you. You two keep fighting, competing, attacking each other, and I'm stuck in the middle of it, trying to stay sane. I hadn't expected that. It hurt. But worse than hurting, it outraged me. So you're saying it's exhausting to be stuck in the middle of my war with Genoveva? But you did absolutely nothing to stop her from provoking you. Nothing. Not even moving her damn foot. I didn't notice, Elena, he finally shouted, losing his composure. I was trying to focus on dinner, not analyze every movement under the table. My eyes filled with tears. Not because he shouted, but because he didn't understand. Because he didn't want to understand. Because deep down, I knew he did feel it, and worse, it didn't bother him. That night, we slept in the same bed but in different worlds. I turned away, my heart in pieces. He breathed deeply, trying to force sleep that wouldn't come. And it went on like that for days, the tension, the silence, the distance, until a week later, Genoveva sent me a photo. A selfie wearing Matteo's basketball team jersey. The caption read, "I loved trying it on. Fits me perfectly." No context. No explanation. Just pure, raw provocation. My blood boiled. I climbed the stairs to Matteo's apartment like I was possessed. When he opened the door, I already knew something was wrong. She was here, I said, showing him the photo. His eyes went wide. What are you talking about? What am I talking about? About your room. About your shirt. About your omission. What was she doing here, Matteo? She came to drop off a book you forgot at your mom's place, he said, too quickly. I didn't even let her in properly, I just took it and thanked her. Then why was she wearing your shirt? I don't know. You don't know? I screamed. Do you think I'm stupid? That I'm naive? You're lying to my face, Matteo. I swear I didn't do anything. You're acting like I betrayed you. And you didn't? I said. Because honestly, between betrayal with the body and betrayal through silence, through your eyes, through passivity, do you know what hurts more? Knowing you did nothing to protect me from her. He was speechless. Truly speechless for the first time. And that's when I understood, he didn't stop her because he didn't want to. That night, I didn't cry. For the first time in many months, I didn't cry for him. Instead, I wrote. I wrote what she had done with Adon. I wrote what she had done to me. I wrote everything, with dates, screenshots, conversations, stories. I built a full dossier, no filters, no mercy. Then I went to find Adon. He greeted me with a cynical smile, as if he already knew the reason I came. But when I showed him everything, his expression changed. "Matteo, right?" he said coldly. "Then let's see how well he holds up when the pressure turns on him." The following week, Genoveva lost her skating club sponsorship. Someone had sent a compilation of her disgusting comments about other athletes, her forced flirting, and videos where she said she only went after rich guys. Adon started dating one of Genoveva's friends, and made sure to post pictures from every place he had gone with her before. And Matteo? Matteo was invited to give a lecture on ethics and teamwork. I, with my fake profile, sent screenshots of his conversations with Genoveva the same day, making it look like the whole thing was a trap they had planned together. The lecture was cancelled. At the end of the week, he came looking for me. "Why, Elena? Why would you do this to me?" I smiled. "Because I got tired of being the fool in the story." He stood there in front of me, shoulders slumped, pride wounded. He was wearing that gray jacket he used to lend me when I was cold, but now it looked too heavy for him. He was pale, as if he had finally realized that he wasn't immune to consequences, and that I was no longer the naive girl who always gave the benefit of the doubt. "You destroyed my reputation, Elena," he said quietly, almost like a cry for help. I didn't reply. "You destroyed that yourself when you chose not to take a stand. When you preferred the convenience of silence over loyalty." I just revealed the truth. He ran a hand over his face, as if trying to erase what he had just said. "You'll never understand what it's like to be caught between the two of you. Don't compare me to her," I snapped. "I never played dirty. I never dressed provocatively just to get your attention. I never invaded her space. I just loved you, Matteo. Truly. But that was never enough for you, because deep down, you liked her attention. You liked being wanted by both of us." He didn't respond, and that silence confirmed everything I already knew. I walked away and closed the door. I didn't slam it. I didn't scream. I just closed it with the calm of someone who, for the first time, was in control. In the days that followed, the whole campus seemed to breathe my story. Someone shared a thread on the student forum with screenshots from my file, the same one I had sent to the basketball team coordinator, the group of scholarship athletes, and everyone involved in Matteo Morales' perfect image. The man who was said to be upright, loyal, exemplary. The truth was that he liked my sister's attention. He responded to her flirting with ambiguous smiles. He never said yes, but he never said no either. And when the situation escalated, he simply pretended nothing had happened, as if being passive was the same as being innocent. But it wasn't. Genoveva was furious. She started posting vague messages on social media, trying to play the victim. Jealous people trying to ruin my career. I feel sorry for those who live in other people's shadows. And of course, the classic, women who compete for small men deserve crumbs. She wanted to play games with me, she didn't know I was just getting started. I got in touch with one of the city's gossip bloggers, one of those who love to expose the behind-the-scenes of athletes and young influencers. I sent the material. I offered audio files, photos, and as the cherry on top, I sent a video of Genoveva provoking Adon at an old party while she was still dating another guy. The video had never gone public, until now. Now it was in the right hands. 3 days later, Genoveva's name was trending locally. People started commenting about the skating world's dark side, how she humiliated colleagues, used relationships as social ladders, mistreated employees and rivals, all with the same sweet smile she used for the press. And Matteo? He tried to apologize again. He sent flowers, wrote letters, showed up at my apartment door with a box full of our memories, movie tickets, old letters, one of my blouses he had kept. But it was already too late. "You're only sorry because everything fell apart," I said firmly. "If no one had found out, you'd still be by her side, pretending not to see anything. And that's worse than betrayal, that's cowardice." He cried. For the first time, he cried for real. And strangely, it didn't move me. It only gave me more certainty that I was on the right path. Little by little, my life started to change. The pain gave way to focus. I started dedicating myself more to my thesis project. I resumed my scientific research scholarship. I joined the university's debate team. People began to see me differently, not as Genoveva's sister or Matteo's girlfriend. I was Elena, the girl who was betrayed, but who stood back up. The girl who didn't forgive the unforgivable. And when I was selected to represent the university at an international young leaders event, guess who popped up in my DMs? Adon. Congratulations. I always knew you were stronger than all of us combined. I replied with a simple, thanks. Because I no longer needed approval, especially not his. What I needed now was to finish what I started. Genoveva was still the darling of some sponsors who wanted to clean up her image, but I knew she had skeletons in her closet. And now, with my new circle of contacts, I had access to files I'd never had before, including an old case that had been silenced, involving a married coach. But that part, I'll tell later. Because the game was still on. And this time, she was the one who was going to lose everything. I knew that if I wanted to bring Genoveva down for good, would have to be meticulous. Exposing public scandals wasn't enough. She was a master at navigating crises with trained charisma, the fake tear at just the right moment, the speech about pressures of the competitive world, and youthful mistakes. What I needed was to take away what held her up the most, the backstage prestige, the open doors, the people who still bet on her. And so I began to work in silence. Through the Young Leaders event, I met journalists, business people, former athletes, and over time, some people who had already heard her name, not with admiration. One of them, a former member of Genoveva's skating team, wrote to me, "If you're really willing to face her, I can show you something I've never shown anyone." I agreed. We arranged to meet. She was a girl named Letitia, now working abroad. She showed up with a USB drive and a wrinkled cardboard box. Inside were old notes, training logs, and a worn-out notebook. "She destroyed my career," Letitia said, eyes locked on mine. "She pushed me during a training session. I fell and tore a ligament. They said it was an accident, but she laughed afterward. I never forgot." The video of the fall was on the USB. The camera didn't catch Genoveva's face, but it showed her path crossing suspiciously in front of Letitia just as she was starting a maneuver. In the background, a familiar stifled laugh, hers. Letitia had never used that footage out of fear, of being labeled jealous or suffering retaliation. But now, seeing everything Genoveva had already done, she decided to trust me. I took the material, thanked her, and stored it carefully. But I wasn't going to release it. Not yet. I needed something more impactful, something final, something that would close every door once and for all. That's when the coach came in. I remembered that years ago, my mother had discovered that Genoveva was receiving special treatment from a club coach. At the time, she denied everything, of course. Said it was envy, that people wanted to bring her down. But there had been whispers, strange looks, and even a moment I witnessed myself, him touching her shoulder in a way far too intimate to be just professional. Now, with my new network of contacts, I went after him. It took time, but I found the man. He was far removed from the sports world now, divorced, living in another city. And to my surprise, willing to talk. She was underage at the time, Elena, he said, eyes down. But she manipulated me like she was 30. I know that doesn't absolve me. I made a mistake. She knew exactly what she was doing. But I was the adult, and I failed. Everything had been silenced through a settlement. He showed me the contract. It was a kind of friendly termination with a confidentiality clause, signed by the club's management. I took photos, recorded his testimony, saved everything, but still didn't move a single piece. Meanwhile, Genoveva was posting photos, smiling in expensive cafes, pretending to live in peace that didn't match someone who, just 1 week earlier, had screamed at me on the phone, "You will never reach my level, Elena." Never. Matteo, for his part, vanished. He disappeared from social media, from campus circles. I heard rumors that he was depressed, that he lost his scholarship, that he was removed from the basketball team after the public exposure. I didn't feel joy about it, but I didn't feel sorry either. He made his choice. And his silence was the final blow. That's when the perfect opportunity arose, a documentary. An independent project on psychological abuse and toxic competitiveness in youth sports. I submitted an anonymous proposal. I wrote a neutral but powerful account. I included fragments of the interview with Letitia, footage of the fall, and the coach's testimony. They accepted it. The documentary aired 2 months later. No names were directly mentioned, but those who knew the industry knew exactly who it was about. The reaction was devastating. Brands began to distance themselves from Genoveva, first discreetly, then openly. The club where she trained issued a statement saying they would open an internal investigation into former coaches. The Skating Federation announced a re-evaluation of medals won by athletes involved in unsportsmanlike behavior. And even though her name was never officially mentioned, Genoveva's silence, who had always been so vocal and full of opinions, screamed louder than any word. She tried to deny it. She posted videos saying it was all the result of structural sexism, that strong women were always attacked. But no one believed her. Because now, her former teammates began to speak up. One by one, they appeared in the comments, in Instagram stories, in interviews, all with similar stories: unfair competition, sabotage, insults, humiliations disguised as jokes, and of course, emotional manipulation. In just a few days, Genoveva went from youth idol to persona non grata. And I just watched. I ate my toast with jam. I studied, I lived, I rebuilt myself, and for the first time in years, I breathed without fear. She had taken so much from me: friends, relationships, self-esteem, but she could never take away my truth or my strength. And now, everything she had built on top of lies was collapsing like a sandcastle under the tide of reality. And I was the wave. When I saw the photo of her sitting alone at the back of a cafe, wearing a cap to hide her face and the sunglasses she used to proudly display in store windows, I knew. Genoveva was broken, not in her body or in her style, because vanity was something she always had in excess, but broken where it hurt the most, in her pride. The laughter disappeared. The invitations vanished. The brands that once bowed at her feet now pretended she had never existed. She was still trying to stay active on social media, but the comments were merciless. How many people did you push down to reach that position? I always knew there was something wrong behind that angelic face. Queen of manipulation. Worse than Matteo's silence was your arrogance. And in that silence, he too was sinking. I heard from a mutual friend that Matteo had moved back in with his parents. His father treated him like a failure. His mother cried every day, saying it was just a phase. He didn't want to leave the house. He rejected invitations. He deleted all his Instagram photos. He disappeared. Sometimes, I confess, I wondered if all of this was too much. If it had gone too far. But then I remembered all the nights I spent crying while the two of them wrapped themselves in secrets and cynicism. I remembered the pain of watching my sister laugh at my suffering while using my boyfriend like a war trophy. I remembered Matteo's look when he told me that maybe the problem was me. No. It hadn't gone too far. They had just never imagined someone like me would have the courage to go anywhere. And I did. I went beyond the pain. I went beyond the resentment. I went beyond the role they had written for me, the overshadowed sister, the shadow, the one who swallows her pain. This time, I was the protagonist. And more than that, I still had one final card. Because while everyone judged Genoveva for what they saw in the documentary, there was one story no one knew. One I had saved for the right moment. And that moment came when, during a forced press conference, she decided to cry. I made mistakes. Everyone does. But I'm being judged for rumors, for envy, by women who can't stand seeing another woman shine. That was the spark. I picked up my phone, opened the video, and posted it. It was old, a recording Adon had made without her knowing, at one of the parties where he had tried to break up with her. In the video, Genoveva said, "Seriously? You thought I liked you? I just wanted to see Elena's face when she found out. She's always been pathetic. She begs for crumbs. At least now she knows what it feels like to lose." In less than 20 minutes, the video exploded. It wasn't about sports. It wasn't about beauty. It was about character. About admitting you destroyed someone else on purpose, for pleasure, for envy, for pure sadism. And this time, not even the Instagram feminists could defend her. Because there, raw and exposed, was the truth. Genoveva never wanted justice. She was never a victim. She was the weapon. And now, she was drowning in her own poison. In the days that followed, I received hundreds of messages. Some called me brave. Others called me cruel. I didn't reply to any of them. Because the truth is, I didn't do this for applause. I did it for me, for all the times I was silenced, diminished, betrayed by those who claimed to love me. And in the middle of it all, there was a curious moment. Matteo called me. I didn't answer right away. I let it go to voicemail. And when I listened to the recording, my heart nearly faltered. Elena, I know you probably hate me, and rightfully so. But I need to say that despite everything, you made me see who I had become. I let things happen. I was weak. And in the end, I lost you. I lost everything. But I wanted you to know that even if I don't deserve it, I still love you. I turned off the audio with steady hands. I didn't cry. I didn't respond. I didn't save the number. Because in that moment, I understood, he didn't love me. He loved the version of Elena who accepted everything in silence. The one who waited by the court with his jacket in hand. The one who smiled while she was slowly being erased. And that Elena no longer exists. The days passed, and the dust did not settle. If Genoveva thought the internet would forget quickly, she was completely wrong. The video kept circulating, now with commentary on opinion channels, podcasts discussing the emotional manipulation she had imposed on me, even a viral thread titled, "How to Destroy Your Sister in 5 Steps, a case study on Genoveva." It sounded cruel, and it was. But it was the exact reflection of what she had done to me for years. Only this time, there was nowhere to hide. She tried to disappear, deactivated comments, left social events, but when you build your identity on a public image, silence becomes a scream. The brands cut ties. The clubs denied her re-entry. Even colleagues who once defended her now just wanted distance. And that's when the most ironic thing of all happened. She tried to reach out to me. Yes, the same Genoveva who said I was pathetic. Who laughed at my pain. Who stole my boyfriends like collecting trophies. She showed up at the door of my apartment. No knock. No message beforehand. She just appeared. I opened the door and she was there, defeated face, swollen eyes, hair thrown up in a messy bun. An unthinkable look for someone who had always used appearance as a shield. She held a bag of muffins. As if that could erase everything. "Elena, we need to talk," she said quietly. I stayed silent for a few seconds. A part of me wanted to explode, to throw every humiliation back in her face. But I held back. Because in that moment, she wasn't a threat. She was a shadow of what she once was. And I was light. "Come in." 5 minutes, I said. She sat at the edge of the sofa as if walking on broken glass. She looked around, noticing the plants I had grown myself, the frames I had hung, the piece she had never managed to steal. "I wanted to apologize," she began. I laughed, humorless. "To apologize? Or to clean up your image?" "I deserve it," she said, looking down. "I know. But I'm alone, Elena. Really. Everyone turned their backs on me. No one wants to hear me. And even after everything, I thought maybe you could still understand me." That word, understand me. That word pierced through me. "You used me as a mirror your whole life, Genoveva. You imitated me. You surpassed me. You hurt me. And now, after everything, you come here asking for understanding?" She didn't reply. Her eyes filled with tears, but I wasn't moved. Her tears had never meant remorse, only strategy. "You don't feel guilt, Genoveva. You feel shame. And that's not the same thing." She bit her lip in defeat. "But not even that broke my shield. I take no pleasure in seeing you like this," I continued, "but I'm also not going to pretend I haven't waited for this moment. Because for years, all I wanted was justice, nothing more. And now, it's here." She stood up. Left the bag on the table. "I just wanted to be your sister again." "You never were," I replied, just before she walked out the door. She turned around, and for the first time in her life, she had no answer. The following week, I received an internship offer from a major publishing house. I was selected after they read my published article on psychological manipulation between women in sports environments. The piece, based on my own experience, was symbolic. Around the same time, I heard that Matteo was working at a sporting goods store. Someone told me he had tried to return to the university team, but sponsors refused. Now he spent his days folding shirts, organizing basketballs, and avoiding the curious stares of people who once idolized him. And me? I was fine. Truly fine for the first time. I didn't need to prove anything to anyone. I didn't need to compete for love. I didn't need to shrink myself to fit into spaces that were never made for me. One Sunday morning, I received a call. It was at dawn. I just wanted to say I'm leaving the city. I started working in sports consulting in another region. But before I go, I wanted to thank you. For what? I asked, surprised. For showing me that we don't have to accept the roles we're given. You didn't get revenge just for yourself. You saved a lot of people from Genoveva's poison, including me. I smiled. He hung up. And in that silence after the call, I felt something inside me settle. The pain was gone. The rage too. What remained was the certainty that I had survived, and more than that, that I had won. But most importantly, I would never again allow anyone to define my worth based on their convenience. I am Elena. And no one erases my name. Life, as always, moved forward, not in a rush, but with steadiness. The university hallways that once felt like stages of my insecurities had now become the backdrop of my freedom. People greeted me sincerely. Professors called me by my name. And I no longer walked with slumped shoulders. I had reclaimed myself. One morning, as I crossed the courtyard with my notebook in hand and earphones in, I received a message that made me stop in my tracks. It was from the academic coordinator. Elena, you've been nominated to represent the university at the International Congress in Lisbon. Your article was one of the highest rated. I sat down on a stone bench under a tree and stared at the screen for a while. This was it. The ultimate proof that everything had been worth it, that I didn't need to compete with anyone or shrink to fit into someone else's shadow. I went home with a warm heart. I called my mother, who knew almost nothing about what had happened in the past few months. She cried with emotion. She said she was proud of me, something I had waited years to hear. I didn't know if she knew everything. Maybe she had pretended not to. Maybe she was trying to preserve the little bond we had left after so many years of favoritism toward Genoveva during childhood. But in that moment, I didn't want to look back. And speaking of Genoveva, she reappeared. Not physically, but in the news. Former skater Genoveva F. seen waiting tables at popular chain restaurant after scandal. The headline came with a blurry photo, her hair pulled into a loose bun, apron stained with sauce, glancing sideways as if trying to be invisible. I didn't feel joy. But I didn't feel pity either. It was ironic. The same Genoveva who mocked my simple style now had to wear a uniform. The one who ridiculed my choice to study and dedicate myself was now ignored by all those who once knelt at her feet. Her downfall wasn't sudden, it was gradual. And that made it even harsher. Little by little, she was cast aside by all those who once pretended to be her friends. Because when you gain everything through charm and manipulation, you lose it all the moment the charm fades. I didn't tell anyone I had seen the news. I just kept the image, not to use against her, but as a reminder, karma isn't always loud. Sometimes it whispers. And it whispers for a long time. Before leaving for the Congress, I organized a small farewell gathering with my closest friends. We sat in a circle, listened to music, laughed about old stories. No one mentioned Genoveva. No one mentioned Matteo. And that alone was liberating. At one point, during a lull in the conversation, a friend asked me, Elena, after everything, do you regret it? I looked at the glass of juice in my hand. I thought for a few seconds. I don't regret what I did. I regret the time it took me to understand who I was, to realize I didn't need anyone's approval. That all I needed was to believe in myself. She smiled. She hugged me. On the morning of my flight, I got up early, packed my suitcase, put on my university ID badge, and walked down the stairs of the building with a smile on my face. While waiting for the taxi, I felt a peace so deep it was almost strange. It was as if all the knots had finally come undone, as if that story had finally reached its end. Not the way I had imagined it when I lay in bed with my eyes burning from crying, but the way it was meant to end, with justice, with truth, with growth. And there, on the plane, staring out the window at the clouds, I made a promise to myself. I will never again shrink to fit into someone else's life. I will never again allow love to come wrapped in humiliation. I will never again let myself be silenced. Because now I was Elena, whole, strong, unforgettable. And most importantly, finally free.